So in today's video, I want to talk about why I still use the Sony a7S III in 2022 and why I'm not switching to any other camera. Now, reason number one is the image quality. The fact that this camera body is so small and so tiny and it can produce professional-like image quality is just mind-blowing. It's really unbelievable for the price point of this camera. This camera is especially hands down the best camera that I've ever used, especially coming from a Canon EOS RP that did not have at all the video functions that I needed to have like this camera has. And this camera is 2 years old. Now, coming from a Blackmagic cinema camera and a Canon EOS RP, I do not regret the switch at all. It was honestly the best choice I made. Also, another thing, I have not been disappointed in the frame rates or the bit rate at all in this camera. Just like everybody else, I shoot in 10-bit for all my short films and stuff like that. For my talking head videos like this, it's always in 8-bit just so I can save on file sizes. One thing I want to add, if you're new to videography and you're debating on which camera to get, if you want to get this camera or even an FX3, which seems to be a very hot topic right now, in my opinion, I say get this camera over the FX3, because between this and FX3, there's not really much of a difference besides like the menu layout. There's some other differences, but I'm not going to get into it because this video is not about that. Now, reason number two why I love the Sony a7S III is the photo capability of this camera. Now, some might argue and say the Sony a7S III is not a photography camera, but at the end of the day, for my needs, it's good. Yeah, it only has 12 megapixels, and like the ideal for professional work will probably be 24. If you want that case, then go get an a7 IV or something along that line. But I'm not printing out any photos. I'm hardly ever doing any cropping in on my photos. I just like taking photos for my social media platforms or for friends' social media platforms, but I'm not doing professional weddings, like photo-wise. I'm not doing any of that stuff. So for my needs, the photography standpoint, it is more than enough. The third thing is the dynamic range in this camera. This camera has amazing dynamic range for a small body camera. Now, Sony did advertise it to have 15 stops of dynamic range, but I seen a video where it was proven that realistically it only had about 13 stops of usable dynamic range, but that's still good. It's still good for my needs, for the videography work. It's just another thing about the dynamic range that really caught my attention coming from a Canon is I would notice immediately the Canon, my highlights would always get blown out. But in this camera, it does really well to retain the highlights, retain the shadows. It does it really, really good. Canon, it was just always an issue for me with the highlights, always an issue. In this camera, I have not yet to have that issue. Now, in conclusion of this camera, I honestly am very well pleased and very happy with it. This camera has actually brought back the fire in me to get back out there creating videos, creating short films, having fun with what I'm doing. My other cameras, just as I was using them, as I was learning, as I was becoming better and better and better, it was just the little small things about the older cameras that I had that just really just died out the fire in me to even go back and start content creating. Coming from a Canon EOS RP that didn't have, I guess, Canon log, it didn't have 4K. Well, I mean, it did have 4K, but the crop factor on it was so bad that it was just completely unusable. So it didn't have that. And then I had a Blackmagic camera, but the Blackmagic camera is a great camera. If you're a cinematographer, I highly suggest that you should get a Blackmagic camera. But my issue was, I didn't really do too much research about the camera. And that's what I did for a lot of the cameras that I bought. But this camera just, my opinion, blows the Blackmagic away, and it definitely blows the RP away by a long shot. Ever since I picked up this camera, it's brought me nothing but smiles, joy. It makes me want to go back out there and start creating again, just because of all the features that it has and everything that it's capable of doing in such a small, compact body camera. Now, some people ask, why did I get rid of the Blackmagic? For me, the Blackmagic just didn't fit my workflow. Obviously, I do a lot of travel, filmmaking, a lot of traveling stuff, which you can take the Blackmagic traveling. There's no issue with that. It's just every single time, if you have a Blackmagic, you would know that you have to rig it up. Sometimes that will be the most tedious part, is going on a shoot, traveling somewhere, carrying a whole bunch of camera stuff, like camera cages, microphones, external batteries, SSDs, there's all this stuff that you gotta plug into the Blackmagic just to make it fully function, work, and last long. It just got tiring, it got tedious, it got annoying, and it's just something that I just honestly just didn't like. It was a micro four thirds sensor, so the sensor was very, very small, so it wasn't the best in low light situation like how this camera is. It didn't have in-body stabilization, but it's a cinema camera. It just, for me, little things like that, even how the body was shaped, it was just oddly shaped, and it just didn't fit comfortably right in my hands. It was very, very heavy. The lens I was using was a Sigma 24-105, so it made it, without the cage on it, it made it extremely heavy, front heavy at least. And it's just little things like that is the reason why I kind of sold it, to be honest with you. And also another tedious thing with this camera, the a7S III, I love, I don't need no other plugins in order to use my files into Final Cut Pro where I edit off of. The Blackmagic, I had to download a third-party plugin that was like $60 just to transcode the files into Final Cut because Final Cut couldn't have the files. So it's just stuff like that. It just made my workflow just so much more extra than what it had to be. And for the image quality that it produced, it was good. But I just prefer the Sony a7S III more. That's just my opinion. With all that being said, the Sony a7S III is an amazing camera. I'm not switching it. I don't plan on getting rid of it. I actually do plan on upgrading eventually, but not anytime soon. I'm gonna wait a couple years, but the only second camera that I plan on buying is a red Komodo. I really want a red Komodo. I really wanna, because I don't like being in the same spot, in the same position. I like to learn new things. I like to challenge myself. And if you have a red, leave in the comment section below. Let me know how much you love the red, because I really, really want to try it out and I really want to use it. And I know that's a whole different world right there. And I know it might be overkill for what I need it for. I just want to push myself. I want to challenge myself. I want to be the best I can be at what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing it. I want to be the best. So without further ado, I really think that you should buy a Sony a7S III as your first camera, as your A camera, as your professional wedding camera, as your professional music video camera. Whatever it is highly recommended. If you're new to the channel, my name is Delandre. I talk about tech gear, camera stuff, travel filmmaking, anything to do with cameras, films, I talk about it. Like, comment, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Abiantu, buongiorno.